Here, we will use computer graphics and explain in simple terms how the unique arch shape of the Kintai Bridge was constructed. First, the base beams were installed into the bridge pillars. Next, the metal foundations designed to hold the ends of the number 1 girders were installed. The number 1 transverse alignment beam was then installed at the opposite ends of the 5 number 1 girders in order to ensure equal spaces between the girders. Next, the number 2 girders were installed, and a transverse alignment beam was installed in the same way as for the number 1 girders. Next, the wedges which fill the spaces between each of the girders were installed, and the center beam was installed across the center of the wedges. The number 3 and number 4 girders were then installed in the same way. As you can see, the bases of all girders up to the number 4 girders are embedded in the metal foundations on the bridge pillars. Let us follow the process to this point as it occurred during the actual construction. Next, the number 5 through number 9 girders were installed. Each new girder beginning from number 5 onward gradually brought the span closer to the center. When assembly up to the number 9 girders was complete, the large ridge beams were installed. Installation of the ridge beams was a key step, similar to raising the frame of an ordinary wooden house. After this point, a large number of parts were installed, including the number 8 rear beams, number 10 girders, small ridge beams, ridge side beams, and number 11 girders, completing the primary parts of the arch structure. Here we see the installation of the large ridge beams. From the computer animation, this appears to be a simple process as long as construction proceeds as planned. However, because this large ridge beam forms the center of the constructed girder framework, the fit of the entire wooden framework had to be considered before the beams were cut. This was the most important step in the construction and severely tested the skills of the engineers. The dimensions were measured at the construction site, and the beams were carefully cut based on these measurements. It was then time for them to be installed. This was a symbolic moment in the construction of the Kintai Bridge, when, by using the exceptional methods developed by our ancestors, the two sides of the arch were joined together. The Kintai Bridge is composed of a large number of girders laying on top of one another, each positioned slightly closer to the center than the last. It is therefore necessary to more closely join the parts where these girders overlap. This is where the iron bands come in. The iron bands are key parts, which, though hidden from view, support the unique wooden arch spans that the Kintai Bridge is known for. When the iron band work was completed, next, the reinforcement materials were installed. Copper plating was then installed in order to protect the girder framework from corrosion before the bridge deck was finally installed. The bridge deck is composed of Japanese cypress planks, each approximately 5 meters long and 30 centimeters wide, which must be individually and carefully fastened in place. The assembly work had now reached the final stage. Early spring 2004. In the early spring of 2004, the Heisei reconstruction of the Kintai Bridge was completed, preserving the original form of the bridge as it appeared when it was first built in 1673. The reconstruction work required approximately 3 years. This historic process, seen for the first time in half a century, attracted a great many visitors who were fascinated by the reconstruction of this beautiful bridge. This is the flood-proof bridge that brought the dream of the Iwakuni Domain to life. This near-miraculous bridge has overcome numerous failures and trials to stand for many long generations. In it, we can see the many people of Iwakuni who have continued to care for the bridge. Even when the clear waters of the Nishikigawa River were transformed to a raging flood by a storm, they never gave up. They most certainly deserve our admiration for their wisdom, passion, and unconquerable spirit. It is our great responsibility and our honor to preserve the majestic bridge that you see here for future generations, and to communicate to them its important history and spirit of our ancestors.